Good afternoon and welcome back to the Daughter Arise channel. My name is Yvonne Ellis and I am founder of Daughter Arise organisation, which funnily enough has turned 7 years old today. And I just wanted to come to you and do a quick mini book review on a book I read recently that I want to share with you. And I'm just going to be talking about an excerpt from the book that I've read, and it is by Maya Angelou and it's called I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. Now, I bought this book probably about 2 months ago, and I bought it off Amazon. As you know, I am, if you are on my other channel, the Empowered Life channel, which is part of my company, Yumi Empowerment, I do book reviews on there, and one of the things I share on there is that I'm an avid reader. I love reading and buying books. And one of the ways I'm able to do that quite often really is by picking up books that are in an as new condition, sometimes picking them up for as little as a penny or a pound or something on Amazon Marketplace. And I bought this book, I think it cost me probably 2 pence, and I wanted to read the book. Now, I am really familiar with Maya Angelou because she's somebody who I find very inspirational. As a matter of fact, on our website, Daughter Arise, her quote, "Nothing can dim the light that shines from within," is one of our main quotes that we have on there, because as survivors of abuse, sometimes it can feel like, not so much for me now, but for a lot of people, and I can also resonate with that, it can feel like there is no hope, that, going through abuse can leave this darkness in your life that makes you feel that there will never be anything hopeful or light or joyful. So her quote is on our website, and also as well I'm familiar with her poems. I really do like her poems, but I'd never actually really read any of her books, and this book I think is one of 3 in a series of autobiographies she wrote about her experience growing up. And in this book she talks about her experience specifically growing up in America in the 1930s. And it was kind of a difficult experience for her. There was lots of racism and different things that were going on, but the experience I want to talk to you today about is her experience of being through sexual abuse at the age of 8. She was raped by her one of her mother's boyfriends, and the effect that it had on her. And really I wanted to kind of, well, as I was reading it, about her experience, about what happened to her, how it affected her life, the kind of fallout within her family, the fear that she felt, I realised that even though she went through this experience in the 1930s, her experience is not really any different to what a lot of survivors of sexual abuse have experienced today. First of all, one of the familiarities that happens is that it's somebody that the child knows, loves, or trusts. So as we know, this was her mother's partner, and her mother did have a couple of other partners before that, but none of them had abused her. It was this specific man that had done this to her. And so it was somebody that she knew and that she loved and trusted. He was given access to her, and one of the things that was going on in her background, which goes on in some people's background, is that there is no kind of real family connections. Her father wasn't around. She had a younger brother named Bailey, whose father was in and out, but for her, I think the whole experience kind of left her feeling disconnected and not felt like she'd belong. She never had somebody, even though she had an uncle there, they didn't have that type of relationship where she was affirmed and felt, valued and special as a young black girl. So because of kind of like the disconnection in her growing up, there was an area of her life where she was left vulnerable. So when this particular partner of her mum's started to pay attention to her, she thought it was a good thing. and he was using the guise of giving her hugs. He was, doing things. And I'm going to just give you a quick warning here that, again, because of the nature of the topic is about sexual abuse, I might talk a little bit about her experience, which might involve things that you might find uncomfortable or find triggering. So, if that is something that you're going to find difficult, I would advise you maybe not to watch this video. But anyway, what happened is that this partner of her mother's would give her hugs, give her cuddles and things like that, but he would use that under the guise to rub himself on her and do all these different types of things to her, and she was left confused by the experience, which was what happens to many survivors today. Wanting love, wanting hugs, wanting affection is totally natural for a child to want to have. But then the confusing part comes in with all this other stuff where the perpetrator, is actually using it as an opportunity to engage in sexually explicit behaviour. So, she really enjoyed the closeness of the hugs and everything else, but didn't like the other bits that came with it. There was an incident where he wet the bed, she said, and they accused her of wetting the bed, which obviously we know what that meant. Obviously he did what he had to do, but she was confused by that. Then I think it was another occasion again where he came over, he put her to bed, but actually the mother I don't think was in the house, and he asked her to come and sit on her lap. And she was a young girl, she was 8, and something in her, she just said that I didn't want to go and sit on his lap, and she was saying to him in a polite, respectful way she didn't want to do it, but he was quite forceful for her, telling her to come over and whatever, and it was then that he raped her. And for me, reading her experience actually was really quite hard, because I thought to myself, wow, to read this book anyway, it is quite a detailed book, and if you're interested in finding out the history and stuff about the 1930s and how it affects people, how it affected people growing up in that era, and the kind of things that the background, the churches and all that stuff, then this is a good book to read. But the part about her experience of being raped at 8 was really difficult, and it's something that I would say to you, if you're going to read it, to be mindful of, because it is quite a difficult thing. Not that she goes into really explicit details, but just the fact that she was so young and going through that was really hard. So anyway, he raped her, and she was left to walk home. She was in a lot of pain. She developed a fever. Her body just was totally overwhelmed by the attack. She tried to go to bed and sleep it off. Her mother saw that there was something wrong. She had a fever and everything else, and called a doctor. But and she sweated up the bed so bad that they needed to change the sheets. And it was then, I think, that on taking out the sheets, because she had hid her knickers underneath the mattress, it was on changing the sheets that her knickers fell out from under the bed, under the mattress. And that's when everything was revealed. And she told Bailey, because she really trusted her brother, about what had happened, and obviously he did the right thing in talking about it and telling somebody. And the feelings that she went through after that, feelings of isolation, feeling like she went through, that she did something wrong, that she was going to be in trouble, because the man was, I think his name was Mr. Freeman, was telling her that she would be in trouble, no one would believe her. This again is something that many survivors of sexual abuse go through, where they have threatened with silence, threatened that nobody would believe them, they're going to be in trouble. And this is something that she also experienced as well. Anyway, it went to court, and in the court, even though now the court system is really not much better for a lot of people who are going through it now, there's very little kind of robust support for survivors going through these type of cases. But imagine what it was like back in the 1930s. I mean, she was put on the stand. The perpetrator's defence was, telling her that she made it up, and she had to go through all this, and it was such a traumatic experience for her. And what was funny as well, not funny, but what was kind of weird as well was the fact that when obviously she was in hospital and everything else, but then after about 8 weeks or 3 months or something, she had a nurse that was coming around and seeing her, and then they kind of deemed her healed from her experience, which for me I found very odd, because I thought to myself, well, the psychological wounds may be healing, but the physical wounds may be healing from what she'd endured, but the physical wounds would take a long time. But anyway, she went through that court experience, and he was let out. He didn't serve any time, but that very afternoon he was shot dead. So and she felt the guilt of that. She felt that she had done something wrong, and also as well the fact that she couldn't get over it in the way that people expected her to get over it in, because the nurse had said, a couple months later, that she should have been over it by now, she should be healed. But, I suppose as time has gone on, probably towards now in the 70s, 80s, I don't think even in the 60s they were even thinking like that, that sexual abuse can cause a lot of psychological damage, psychological trauma. So she carried the burden of that, and felt so overwhelmed by her experience that actually she vowed never to speak to anybody. And from that point on, she just became like mute. She just kept herself very, very quiet. The only person she would speak to was her brother, Bailey, until further on in her story she met a woman who, Miss Flowers I think her name was, that gave her a love of books. But the feelings that she went through were very hard and very challenging for her. She felt intimidated by the court process, and obviously her brother did the right thing in encouraging her to speak out, because he might do it to somebody else. But the fact that she didn't have that kind of psychological support really did have effect on her, and it affected her for a long time. What is wonderful about her story, because as we know, she passed a few years ago now, but she was able to achieve so many things, her work lives on, despite her not being here in the physical, and she's somebody who I find to be very inspirational. And her story, her life, shows you that you can go on to recover from these things, in the best way that you can, and make something out of those bad experiences. It wasn't easy for her to do. It wasn't easy for her to do this, and as I said, her experience of going through sexual abuse, being raped by a family, a partner, an acquaintance of the family, to what survivors are going through now, in terms of how it left her feeling isolated, the fallout, being blamed, being made to feel bad for not recovering quick enough, feeling guilt because of the perpetrators, because his own actions, we have to remember here, his own actions led to his own death. This is the thing, you see. He was the one who had raped this child. He was the one that had, done these things. But no matter how much onus he tried to put on her to say, okay, well, if you tell anybody, they're going to blame you, and threatening her to keep quiet. And she did. She said, yeah, I will keep quiet. She promised to keep quiet. But when the second time it happened, she didn't feel, her and her brother had such a close relationship. She said that she could never lie to him. And when he asked her, when he found her knickers, when they fell out from underneath the mattress, she told him. And he did the right thing in telling somebody. But the fallout is the same as we see from the 1930s, and it's still going on today in 2018. The onus is still being put on the victim, the survivor, to be the one to make amends, to put things right, to recover, to heal, to think about the perpetrator. And, it's still going on now. But I just wanted to share this book with you. And, I would say, if you want to know about the background in which a lot of black people had to grow up in the 1930s in America, and some of the kind of the way they were treated, and the backdrop, I would definitely say to read this book. She has got 2 other books out, as I said, in the same series, which I will be checking out. But I just thought I would share this with you, just because she was raped. Maya Angelou was raped as a child, and I just felt that there was a lot of similarities in her experience to what I experienced coming up and what people and survivors and victims are experiencing now. I will leave a link for the book in the description bar below. Please subscribe to this channel. If you want to check out what Daughter Arise is about, please visit www.daughterarise.org.uk. We offer a variety of different support, and we are a peer empowerment organisation, meaning that we support people who've had similar experiences to ourselves. So I will leave those links below, the link below to the organisation and the book, and I will see you on the next video.